ladies, welcome back to the Let's Talk Bikini podcast and welcome to my crib. And welcome to our guest, Jess Mahoney. Mahoney, is that how I say it?
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. My pleasure. If all you guys follow us along and follow my team, StephkaFit, you guys will all know that Jess is our second coach on our team. So we've been working together for almost a year now, in terms of her coaching side of things. Of course, I've been coaching her for quite a little while now. How long have you been working together in terms of your comp pro? Nearly 2 years?
Yeah. I'm going to tell you how many things I've done with you. Hold on. 121 on Monday.
How many?
121 was
100,
Monday.
121 check-ins that we've done together. So you are a
Yeah.
consistency queen. Cool. So yeah, so I'm guessing it's probably about 2 years we've been working together in terms of like coaching client, but she's also a coach on our team as well. So not only a client, but my business partner. So yeah, so lots to dive into, lots to speak about your previous season as well. So your previous season is what I would say was your breakthrough season in IFBB. So your second season in IFBB, but your first season, I guess, wasn't really an IFBB season anyway. It was kind of like that you were doing ICN and then just decided to jump into the IFBB for one of the shows. So yeah. So let's give our listeners a little bit of a backstory of you and why you decided to go down the IFBB route, because I know we've known each other for quite a long time. We were both sponsored by Say Course, so going back quite a few years ago, and you were always a frequent ICN competitor that was very scared to dive into IFBB until I convinced you. So so tell us a little bit about your backstory and why you decided to go to IFBB.
So I did the ICN, I think, to be honest, like including my most recent season with them, I did about 12 ICN shows. And I did every single state. I did nationals. I did their worlds events. Like I did, South Australia, Queensland, Brisbane. I did a lot of ICN shows, and I kind of felt like I don't really know what else to do here. Like I experienced the different states, the different like nationals and everything. And I always wanted to do the IFBB. That was the physique that I looked up to. Like I remember watching you when I was working in the Cellucor booth, you were doing at the expo in Melbourne. And I was just like, oh, I'm just never going to be good enough for this. Like I've done so many shows. These women just have so much muscle density and they just look so beautiful. And I just can't, I just won't be able to do it. Right. It's just beyond me. I'm too old. I won't ever get there. And then I started prepping. I took a big off season and really focused on proper. It was my first ever time having a training program. When I moved to Queensland, I had a good coach. And when I started prepping for the ICN, I had a lot of people messaging me being like, you look really good. You should try it, including yourself. You should try the IFBB. And I was like, nah, no way. Like, it's my dream, but I'm just too scared. I just can't. Like, I'll make an embarrassment of myself, right? So I did get quite close to the ICN. Like I was maybe like, I don't know, a month out or something. And my coach, Liam, he was like, you have to do the IFBB, Jess. Like you have to. And same with you. You were like, I had posing for the ICN with you and you're like, do IFBB. So I basically tapped it on the end of my ICN season, which is actually a real shame looking back on it because I had to stop after states. I couldn't make it to nationals. My body was just cooked. I'd already done ICN states, nationals, and then the IFBB state show, all because I was just too scared, right? Like the ICN didn't mean anything to me anymore, but I just felt like, I guess it was a safety net because I just was sure that I was going to come dead last and embarrass myself in IFBB. But if I had done those ICN shows the weeks before, at least I could be like, oh, it's all good though. Like I did well in ICN, you know what I mean? Like it was just this actual like horrible sort of safety net thing rather than like true passion. And then when I did that IFBB show, I was like, this is like amazing. Like the athletes backstage were so incredible. Like their physiques were amazing, like the men and the women, and everyone was so friendly. Like there wasn't a big bunch of scary jacked bodybuilders intimidating me that I had thought it was going to be like everyone was really supportive and friendly, and I was like, this is definitely the federation for me. Like these people are the people I want to surround myself with, right? Like I shouldn't waste my time doing something that doesn't align with me anymore and something that's not in my heart, and just take the leap and continue with. So yeah, I didn't do ICN this last time. We just did the IFBB, and I won't ever go back to any other fairs. Like IFBB, the best.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just
Well, obviously very biased, but yeah, I felt the same way when I did. So when I started competing, don't need to go into detail because I feel like you guys have heard it a lot on the podcast. But first show I did was IMBA, which is basically ICN these days. You know, back in the day it was IMBA. And then I did my first IFBB show 2 months later, and then as soon as I did IFBB, it was like this is me, this is it. And when choosing federations to go into, I always think like, you know, the ICNs and all those shows are a good one to try out in your first season. I always say try at least 2 federations to kind of figure out, you know, not only where your physique like fits into, but also where, you know, what you love, what your personality is, and then run with that. So yeah, so a lot of people get too scared to go into IFBB. Of course, like, you know, the IFBB is the highest caliber that you can go into, but it's not as hard and daunting as everyone thinks. It's just there's a particular criteria, and as long as you've built your shape up and you have a coach that understands the criteria and how you need to look, then absolutely, you know, anyone can kill it. And that's what we saw with you, right?
yeah. When so Liam, like, he was incredible at helping me build muscle mass. And then when I switched over coaching with you, we really refined everything, right? So to fit the bikini criteria, we got really specific with training. And whereas with him, it was just like, let's just go overall, because I was quite tiny. And then when we moved across to you, you know, you obviously have a phenomenal eye for the IFBB bikini. So you were like, okay, it gets quite like intricate, right? You're like, oh, this rear delts, like, or, you know, glute med, just like everything, like, is really particular. And then you bring that up, and I don't know, that's how I did so well this time.
Yeah. And yeah, because from your first season, when you did that IFBB show, for, you know, just at the end of your ICN season, you got first timers, which is great. I think you did opens as well, didn't place in that, but that's not a reflection of you as an athlete at all. It's just like you just threw yourself into IFBB and to give it a shot.
Yeah.
But like you had a very good structure in terms of like your shape and your structure, your genetics were like could go very well in very far in IFBB. It was just your shape at the time was a bit more focused on ICN rather than IFBB bikini. And that's the difference between, you know, each federation has different criterias and how you need to look. So it's not that, it's just, you know, apples and oranges essentially. Whereas like if you look at ICN, it's a lot about, you know, a lot of lats. Whereas if you look at IFBB bikini, it's just like it's about a balanced physique, it's about full round glutes and making sure that everything ties in with the right conditioning, not too much, still holding your fullness. So yeah, it's just a different direction that you know, we talking to that off season, working towards your previous IFBB season, and you absolutely killed it and dominated and went overseas and just missed out on the pro card.
I think, like, also when you're choosing a federation, it's worth noting, like, what do you want to look like? Because you were just saying, like, you know, ASEAN's got bigger lats and everything. Like, what physique do you love on yourself? Like, there's no use, you know, because you have to train a certain way to try and fit this criteria. So it's best to pick the federation, like, look at the pros in the IFBB bikini. Like, do I want my body to look more like them, or like maybe the ICN fitness pros, or WBFF, or whatever it might be. I think that's another important thing to consider. And as well as, like, a lot of people unfortunately would choose, and I admitted myself earlier that I'm bad for this too when I did the ICN. It's like people will pick a federation that they think they'll do better in, and they might place higher, as opposed to, like, what's your actual passion? What do you actually, which federation are you actually following? Rather than, oh, I'm going to do this one because, you know, I have more chance of winning it.
Yeah, I agree. And it comes to that, like, are you looking for instant gratification? Are you looking for delayed gratification? And what's your reasoning behind competing, right? Like, I think it's probably the gist of exactly what you explained. And I think the most important thing to focus on is, well, firstly, believe in yourself and your abilities and what you're capable of achieving. And like, what's the long-term goal, right? If you want to be a great IFBB competitor, it doesn't so much matter if you did a show now and you didn't place very well, right? If you know you're going to keep showing up and that you're going to be persistent, and you've got the genetic foundation to do well and build from there, then like, I saw this a lot as an amateur competitor, and it used to stick with me the whole entire time, that whoever was kind of at the top at that point when I was early into my IFBB amateur career, like, they're not around anymore. They never improved. They're not pros, right? And it's people that are pros now, the ones that just kept going at it, kept improving, right? Then they would have known, you need to know in yourself and have that fire inside you to know the direction you're going in, right? Rather than just like wanting to turn up to a show and get a place in there. If you got a third place, then cool. Like, next season, come back, aim for second, and then come back, aim for first, and then come back and aim for first overseas. Like, it's all about constant improvement.
And also, it's like harsh but true. No one remembers who won what. Like, we've had another show last weekend, so there's new winners now. Like, people won't remember that I won my Open in Queensland. They don't, or in Korea, how well I did. Like, people forget. So you really need to do it because you want to and because you love it, rather than the placings or whatnot. Because honestly, like, I couldn't tell you who won last year. I don't remember, and except for the Pro Card winners. I don't know who placed what. I got top 3. I can't remember. There's been so many shows since then.
Yeah, and you can very quickly become irrelevant too. So it doesn't matter how many you win. It's just like, like, cool. If you won one season, you won that season. Are you winning now? If you're not,
Yeah.
then yeah. Anyway, but it's all definitely longevity game and self-improvement, and most importantly, make sure that you enjoy the process as well.
100%. 100%.
So how did you feel in your last season? So we did quite a few shows. So we did Queensland, and then we did nationals, and then we also did overseas, went to Korea. So I feel like your last season, it's a really good season to kind of demonstrate how preps can go, right? Because first show, you got, 2 first place into the overall, just missed out on the overall at Queensland's. We went to nationals, probably our worst show, stress, lots of external factors that went on there, which made you end up looking quite flat, probably a bit inflamed, like bloating from the stress, etc. There. We won't go into detail of why I was very stressed, but yeah, basically for 3 days straight, we're trying to get you into the correct height class when you're put into the wrong one somehow. But yeah, and then going back to Korea and bringing your best and just missing out on a pro card. So 3 very different looks, right? And this is why I always tell people to do at least 2 shows in one season, because so many variables can change, and you can look so different from show to show. And even in your peak weeks and each of your, even like reversing into Korea versus like your other peak weeks in Queensland's and nationals, they're all very, very different.
Yeah. And I think like you learn so much from every show. So it's kind of, if you are health, like, if you got the good health for it, you got the funds for everything, definitely go beyond states, because you'll always have something, even when you're looking your best, you could have improve your posing, you could come in a bit fuller, a bit sharper. And it's really nice to have that opportunity at the next show at nationals to like really go, okay, I've had my, not practice, because we always want to come in our best at every show, but you can take that feedback on and have another chance to showcase what you've been working so hard for this whole time. And I mean, like when I did Korea, like how we said that nationals wasn't my best look, we learned so much from that experience that I'm so glad it happened. And I knew that at the time. I was like, man, I hate lessons. Like, I was like, I wish so badly that I loved this look, but it's just like so much more valuable. I've learned so much. And you know what? Like, we might have been 100% too lean for that one as well, but I've never ever seen myself that lean, and that was a cool experience in itself too. And even just like letting go of how you said I had heaps of stress when I went to Korea, overseas, like we had all these horrible things happen. Like the tanning ladies told us that they couldn't give us a tan. The lady that did my makeup looks like, you know, a blind person with my friend's kids had done it. Like it was horrendous, right? And the whole time I just laughed and I was like, oh well, you know, there's so many uncontrollable things that happen. And then I brought in my best physique because I also wasn't stressed. I'd learned from nationals that like this stress, there's nothing I can do about these situations. I can't change them, but what I can control is, well, everything that I can control. I can control my perspective. I can control my food. I can try and control my sleep. And there's no point. Like I could have just ran around crying all Korea being like, my makeup looks horrible, but I just laughed it off and I was like, oh well, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And then I didn't hold lots of stress, like inflammation from stress, and I slept well because I wasn't up stressing about the fact they told us they couldn't tan us. I was just like, I got to get some good sleep in because I got a show day tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm percent. And you always learn the most from the shows that, or the peak weeks that weren't as great, right? Like I know it sounds really shit. And of course, from a coaching perspective, like we're always going to try and avoid having a shit peak week. But as you said, there's some things that out of your control, right? Especially when you go overseas, like food sources are a big one. Like I know for Korea, we were we were very limited in terms of what food that we could have. And then, you know, we're just using chicken for your protein. Then all of a sudden there's no chicken in the store anymore. So so I think we're using like tin tuna or whatever, like just scrambling with whatever we could get. Like no fats and whatever, you know, we didn't have almond butter left, all that stuff. So so yeah, so like you learn the most from the harder preps. And looking back on, you know, my previous preps as well as an amateur, like the one I'll never forget is like in the first year where I was competing overseas as an amateur, I'd come first in Queensland, and then I went over to Vegas and got second, and then I came back to Australia for nationals, and I pretty much got dead last because again, like probably over dieted, too lean, flat, etc. But you learn from that, right? And then after that, you have that brings that fire to bring it back even better. And then, you know, the next year is when I won my pro card. So it's same thing with kids, right? Like when I was listening to a podcast the other day, but when kids don't get picked for a football team or they don't win or something, like it's a positive thing, right? Because it teaches resilience, and they would have learned, and it would have stuck with them. If, you know, same thing with us, like when we lose the shows, it sticks with us. Thankfully last show of last season was a very good outcome, in that nationals wasn't your last. But if nationals was your last, that would be, you know, your fire will be burning very, very hard right now into your off season. Not that it's not, but like you can imagine how you would be feeling.
Yeah. Like you learn the most from mistakes. I think they're more valuable than wins, to be honest. And they suck at the time, but they give you so much more than that instant success does.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. How did you feel about your season though? Like how did you feel about Queensland? How did you feel about nationals and Korea?
Well, this was easily the hardest prep I've ever done. Like ever done. And I really thought I wasn't going to be able to pull this off because at the time, like as you know, I was working as a flight attendant internationally, and I was like, this is not going to work. Like even doing check-ins with you, it was a nightmare because my data was really skewed, right? Like I'd get off a flight and you're like, I don't know if you're holding, you know, you haven't responded to the diet changes, or if that's just like lack of sleep or fluid retention from a long flight or a number of things. Like it was really hard to keep data like consistent, as well as I could go on forever about like customs throwing up my food and blah blah blah. So I was just like, I don't even know if I'm going to make it. So just making it to Queensland I was really happy with what I looked like. And obviously I was nervous because it's important to me, but my main thing was like, I just want to make it because this feels almost impossible given what I'm doing for work right now. So winning was like, like I mean it from my whole heart when I say I could have come last and still been happy that day. I was so stoked when I won. I was like so stoked because I just wasn't even anticipating that. So that made me so happy. And then nationals, well, I felt really sad because I came second and third, which is amazing. Like top three is so amazing, but I would rather come last and just showcase something that I loved. I didn't like my look that day, so that broke my heart quite a bit.
Mm.
And then Korea was really cool because we got to refeed into that. We got to start my reverse diet. And that was so, I know that that's quite a privilege to be able to do. That's not something that we can always get to. Like people always aim to be able to do that, doesn't always work out. But to be able to reverse into Korea was a dream because I looked so full. I was cruising. There was no stress. Like it almost felt uncomfortable in the way that I wasn't grinding anymore. Like I felt like I was being slack, even though the aim, the goal was to just pull back a bit, sleep more, eat heat, train like properly. I got to train well. So that was really cool. I loved, and Korea was like, the stage was insane. When I was at the hotel gym pumping up, I stayed at the host hotel and would like doing my last training session, and there was all these like jacked like men's physique and classic physique Asian dudes, and I was like, they look fake, like they look amazing. Like it was just the coolest experience ever, and no one was speaking English, and I was like, this is unreal. Like I don't know, the whole thing was just like felt so unreal. Like I'm staring at like the screen in my back pose being like, what the flip, like this is so sick. Like I wish we had production like that here.
Mm. Yeah.
The
Yep.
amateur Olympia, if anyone gets an opportunity to do it, I would highly recommend. And even saying that, like apparently, obviously it's my first one, I have nothing to compare to, but apparently that particular show I did is nothing on other ones, like the ones that you've been to are
Mm.
10 million times more amazing. So I can't even imagine. I'm really excited to do more overseas shows.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. To be quite honest, I think my favorite ones are like all the thinking back to when I was an amateur, all the expos were sick. Arnold's Expo US, even
Oh,
Arnold's Expo Australia. Miss that so much. Like if we still had Arnold's Australia, that yeah, like that was like I'm so glad that I got to compete through that time period when expos were at the peaks. Expos a little bit not the same these days, but yeah, that was absolutely unreal, like competing in the middle of expos. And I know there's still some expos, my shows in expos overseas, some in the US as well. So that will, definitely be high up on the cards if you get a chance to do that. But yeah, but you're completely right. Like Japan is insane. Like Spain in particular is insane. I know some of the Australian girls went there recently, so they'll know what I'm talking about. But yeah, like being able like IFBB absolutely amazing. But if you can get into the international shows as well and experience it overseas, like even just like the culture and having people from all over the world, like as you said, even just the simple things of people speaking different languages backstage are like, what the fuck? Like it's such bodybuilding is such a beautiful community, right? And the fact that people all over the world can come together and like I still remember to this day, like random people that didn't speak English from Europe that I met in like 2017 and in the US and stuff, like you never forget that stuff. But yeah, but honestly, if anyone gets a chance to go overseas, even if you don't feel like you're a massive competitor yet, like just the experience and doing it for yourself, like that itself will light your fire, because I know it's exactly what lit my fire back in the day.
The language barrier is very challenging, but it's quite cool. Like I remember this girl backstage, some of her like bikini was like poking out like some of the material, and I just like gave her a tap and like helped her tuck it in, and she didn't know how to speak English, so she just like kind of like gave me this little smile and wave and like gave me a big hug, and I was like, oh, so cute.
Yeah.
The language, yeah. And oh my god, how did you go in Japan with like the pronunciation? Like did they say, were they announcing in English or in Japanese?
I think it was both. So the show where I won my pro card, it was Tyler Mannion was the head judge. So like there was it wasn't all Japanese like judges and everything everyone running it, if that makes sense. Whereas like when you do Korea, there was probably, I think it was like a full panel of like Korean judges, and it would have been very like Korean run, right? So yeah, so when I did Japan, like there was it was still very, very English as well. Um, yeah, it it flew by, to be quite honest. I can't really remember much about it, but yeah, the production was amazing back then. I've also been back to Japan as a coach with one of my clients for one of the previous shows, and the production was even like 10 times better that show as well. So it's just like, yeah, they just keep getting better and better, and it's a great show to do, Japan, really. Yeah.
So how are you feeling? Like how do you feel going from, what's the difference between your amateur shows versus like your pro shows now? Like how are you feeling going into your pro show now?
Right this second, I honestly feel like I'm starting my career from scratch again. Like,
Yeah.
as in, when look back at my amateur career, when I started off, I wasn't the best athlete, right? I did quite well. I got second in juniors, but I knew the longevity of where I was going, and I knew that I would, you know, make it and get my pro card. I just knew it in myself. I didn't have to speak about it. I didn't have to gloat about it, whatever. I just put in the work, and I kept showing up, and I kept improving each year on year. And I feel like I'm at that starting point again in my pro career. So even though I've been a pro since 2019, I've still done a few shows. I've still placed, but all those shows I didn't bring me to the stage. I think that's kind of similar to how you felt at nationals. But I don't feel like I've brought me and who I am to the stage since I've been pro. So I feel like this is the real starting point for that. So yeah, so I feel like I'm, from ground zero, and then over these next years, that's what I'm aiming to do, just improving year on year on year. So with my upcoming season in Europe, I'm probably picking the shows which are most not suited to my physique, because the European bikini pros, I'm massive and jacked, and my physique's more so in the smaller side of things that would fit into the US better, or the Asian shows better. But it's just the beginning of improving, growing from there, and over the next years to come, etc. from there. So yeah, so in terms of the shows itself, depends on where you go, right? Like, of course, like your international shows like Japan and stuff, even the amateur Olympias, they always have pro shows with it. Um, in terms of the productions, there's so many shows, right? There's so many shows. The first show that I'm doing for this season is Spain, which I have been there with one of my clients, and then watched the pro show there. So I know what I'm expecting with that. And then the couple shows after that, don't know what I'm expecting out of that yet. But yeah, yeah, it's a tough one, right? Like, I still think my favorite years in terms of enjoying competing in the productions and all that is still my amateur days, right? Whereas now it's like, okay, I'm here to be a pro and build up the results that way, rather than and just being present, enjoying it. So yeah. So my word of advice to you is, like, the exact position where you are now was my favorite ever. Like, when you're at that point where you've had your breakthrough season, and you're competitive enough, and you're good enough to go pro, and like your fire's there, and you're doing all these international shows, that's the best part. So even though we like to rush and we want to get that pro card, like, make sure you're also being very present and enjoying the ride along the way. Because 2017 was that time for me where I just missed out, quite close to the pro card at Arnold's Australia. And then the next years from that, from what, 2017, 2019, like, they were great years of just showing up, traveling everywhere, and yeah, so make sure you enjoy it.
And it's so nice to be able to compete in your own country. Like, it's nice to be doing the state shows with all your friends and family there, whereas you're going overseas now. You've got your partner prepping with you this time though, which is fun.
Yeah, yeah. That's the reason why we're doing European shows, to be quite honest, because there's a NPC show, which is the amateurs. He's an amateur. With the pro shows on each of the shows, and they're back to back every weekend. So, and as you all know, I live in Dubai, so we can just jump across to Europe easily and do those shows. I might do another one maybe, after that. But we'll do the European shows and then see how that goes.
Yeah, I'm very excited for that. You can see it in you posted a check-in just before. You can see it in your posing. You're so much more confident this time. Like that transition shot that you've screenshot. I'm like, there she is.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it comes down to like when I turned pro, changed coaches, and of course when you have a coach, right? Like you're with them for their eye for detail and their programming. And I think that programming at the time, like it changed my physique a lot and it didn't highlight my strengths. And yeah, so like my shape, of course, when I was training a certain way for a couple of years, my shape changed and however the programming was, which wasn't right for my body. So I feel like since then it's, okay, now I moved on to another coach. Let's bring back what my strengths are and build that shape up again, which takes time. Jess, I think we've got some questions, but in particular one that we'll discuss now. We got a question. So when will Jess be competing again? Her physique was my favorite from season 9. That's really beautiful. But yeah, so plans for Jess next.
I'm thinking probably season C next year. Just gives me enough time to grow overall. And I have a lot of like other goals in my life that I want to sort of pay a lot of attention to at the moment. And then I think I should be ready to start my prep again to be, season C next year or season A the year after, but probably season C next year.
And then international shows, of course.
Definitely. I'm really keen to see the calendar. They're very slow with it, which makes sense. Like they've got a lot to organize, but I'm really keen to see what they have for offer next year.
Yeah, 100%. I like the fact of how you said like you've got other life goals in there that you need to tick off. And I think that's really important, right? Like you've got to have life outside of it, right? And you're so close. You're so close in terms of the standard that you are at now, and you were so close to the pro card in your last season. But rather than burning yourself out and just trying to show up for it, like you've got that balance with other things in your life that are important as well. So, and then naturally you'll be able to come back and bring your best physique once you've grown some more, and and hopefully secure the pro card.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's the thing. Like, bodybuilding is like a massive part of my identity, but so are other things. Like, I'm a partner, I'm a nurse, I'm a friend. Like, there's so many other parts of my life. And when you do prep, you have to unfortunately put a lot of those things on hold just to achieve that goal with anything, really. Like, if you've got financial goals, you've got study goals, you have to really to excel in one area, you have to sort of give up other areas for a little bit of time. Like, you're not going to propel forward if you're doing too much at once. So I think after such a great season, it's time to put more energy back into like my work, coaching, my friendships, my family, my study, all that kind of stuff needs some attention now too. And I keep training hard. I show up to the gym because it's my favorite part of the day, and it's just like just consistently doing something that I love in a sustainable way. And then when I'm ready to prep again, I would have made heaps of progress and be ready to go and put those other things, always give my attention to all my friends and family and things during prep too. But it's nice to have extra time now for that, as opposed to limited, like, oh, just walk, sorry, or like, I'm on a strict time schedule. We can catch up for an hour coffee, but then I got to go do my cardio, my posing. Like, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that. Our loved ones and our friends like deserve our time and energy as much as what preps do as well. So it is important to balance and give that time back when in off seasons, etc. Because when it's time to prep, it's time to prep.
Oh, and 100% too. Like, I get upset when people push, like, I get the focus mentality, but you have these people that have this toxic, like, I'm in prep, like nothing else is important right now. I'm like, okay, well, what about the friends that come to your show and support you on show day? Like, are you just going to neglect them the whole time when it's their special things like their birthday or milestones or, like all that stuff's really still important.
Yeah, and it's what you said, right? It's toxic. Like even in some people are even like that in off seasons, which like that's when you shouldn't be like that, right? And there's a fine line between like being very driven and very focused on the end goal. It's a fine line of, you know, how focused you are and into that goal and at different times as well. So yeah, so even in like in off season, you should be giving back and filling up your cup and sorting out the life things, and especially like, you know, life happens, shit happens, and we you don't want to be prepping when things like that happen in life.
And prep is always a choice. So I can't stand when people like, oh, I'm so hungry, I'm so tired, complain. It's like at any moment you can open up your pantry and eat something.
Hmm.
Like that's a privilege. Like there's some people in poor countries that are starving because they don't have access to food.
Mm.
Like I can't stand when people complain in prep. Like it's really hard, but it's always a choice. It's like,
Mm.
oh my God, I have to go to the gym today. Well, you don't have to if you don't want to. You can pull out at any time. You can skip your training and stuff. It's actually like when you say that to yourself, you realize like, oh, I want to because I want to succeed, and you go and you get it done.
Mm.
Like pet peeve, like just gone on a big tangent here. Like pet peeve when people just like take their preps out on other people because it's not fair. It's literally something we're doing self-inflicted. It's a hobby. It's some people's career, but like it's still a choice, right?
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. I feel like in Australia as well, like it's very easily to be privileged there. Like not just Australia in particular, but I know when I moved to Dubai, Dubai is it's very two ends of the spectrum, right? Like you've got massive, like you've got a lot of money, there's a lot of big buildings and a lot of wow factors here. But then there's also the flip side of it, right? There's a lot of workers from like India, Pakistan, who are very, very poor, and they're it's kind of, you know, it's slave labor to a certain extent. Not so much because they're actually making a lot of money here compared to where they're from. Certainly send all the money back, back to their families. But even just when you see that alone, it's a bit like, oh wow, like okay, like there is people that are from other countries and other countries that live like this and don't have the same privileges as what we do. And because you never see that in Australia, right? Like Australia is very grateful for it, but it's quite an easy life, I suppose, compared to other countries, right? A lot of people have equal opportunities. You could work in a bartender, and or you could have a pretty successful job and everyone's happy, versus whereas like you come to somewhere like here, like some people will be on very, very little money, and then other people will be on drastic money. So yeah, so it definitely is, you know, a privilege to be in prep. It's a privilege to even just be able to hear, walk, speak, you know, all those things.
Mhm.
My parents are both deaf, completely deaf their whole lives. So that's even a good reminder to be like, you know, I'm grateful that I've got I can hear, I can see, I've got my own business, like all those abilities, and nothing kind of holding me back to achieve greatness in a way.
Yep, absolutely. And even being able to have health to prep, because obviously, we put ourselves in a less than optimal state by the end of prep, but it's like some people's bodies don't allow for that. They can't prep because it's too dangerous for them, or you know so even when it gets really, really hard and you're at the very tail end and you feel like absolute crap, it's still like it's a privilege. A lot of people won't ever get to see themselves this lean. They don't get to they're not allowed to prep. They don't have the health for it.
Hmm.
We're lucky. We're so lucky in our sport.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And being able to travel, because so many people that qualify for the Olympia, and because of the, you know, the country that they're from, etc., they can't even get to the Olympia. So, you know, little things
Um,
like that, and be present and enjoy it. There's a lot more that goes into, you know, getting on stage than just a trophy and trying to win or short-term gratification.
yeah, and I think it's important to enjoy the process as well, because you get to show day and you've had a good time. Like, there's obviously those really hard days, weeks, whatever, but you get there and you enjoy the process. Like you take the time to do your posing and look at your physique and feel proud of yourself and be present in moments at like posing classes when you're connecting with other people. Like if you're really taking it in on show day, you can come last and you can be like, I look sick. I'm so happy with my physique. I made it. I've achieved a really cool thing and have the best day. Whereas if you're having the worst prep ever, you get to show day, you might come dead last and you're like, I hated the process. I hated show day. I hated the outcome. Like, what was the point of that?
Mm.
That's a lot of your life that you've sacrificed for nothing, no gain, really.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's very expensive, takes up a huge portion of your year. So I think it's really, really worth thinking about that as well. Like if you're in the middle of prep and you're loathing it, maybe it's not the right time for you as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Speaking of costs, I guess like what are other costs that involved with competing? Because I know there's a lot of first-time competitors that are probably listen to this podcast. So I guess we should break that down. But bikinis,
Yep.
I'm sponsored. Very, very grateful for Nikki at Fit Angel Bikini. But if we add up all the costs, you've got, well, for example, you need your bikini, which is probably, I'm going to say around $600 to $1,000 Australian. I know any Australians that want an amazing bikini. I'm obviously biased because I'm sponsored by her, but I've worked with her from day one, and yeah, she makes the most beautiful bikinis. Yeah, so Nikki Fit Angel Bikini, I know she's around like 600, I'm guessing, so she's a bit on the cheaper side of bikinis that are available out there, but amazing quality and very in line with the US standard of things. So yeah, so bikini $600 to $1,000, posing heels $100, jewelry probably like $50 to $100 depending on where you buy it from. Lovisa has a lot of good stuff, so you know, if you're on a budget, you don't want to be buying all these jewelry from expensive online stores, then that's always a good shout. What else goes into it? Makeup. 10.
Yeah.
Yeah. How much was your tan?
$100.
$200.
$100.
Yeah, wow, it's gone up since then. Since my day. So $200.
Sorry, that's $600 on tan.
Yeah, for 3 shows. Yeah, so $200 on tan for 1 show. Makeup and hair, I'm assuming it's about 200 or 250. Yeah. By the way, if you're planning to go overseas, compete overseas, 100% recommend learning to do your own makeup. So
Honestly.
yeah,
Oh
honestly.
my oh my gosh. I put in my story when I was in Korea. I was trying to write in Google Translate like no, 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 because it was horrendous. I laughed. I looked at myself in the mirror and I laughed my head off and I was like, I've never done makeup in my life. I'm just gonna have to give it my best shot. So I
Mhm.
went on for the first part of the day just as it was because I had no choice. Like it was back to back, like straight from makeup to on stage. And then in the gap between, I had like metallic silver eyeshadow, like it was crazy. And then in the gap, I just washed it all off in my apartment. I was, fortunate enough to come back for finals. So I just did my own. And then actually have a friend's birthday coming up, and instead of getting my makeup done, I'm actually doing a lesson because I'm like, I'm never having this happen again. Like I'm going to learn how to do my own makeup from now on because that was disastrous.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you're traveling to other continents, like for example, Asia places, it makes it extremely hard for makeup. If there are makeup artists there, they're like where our faces are a lot different than what like
Yeah.
Asian kind of makeup, so which is what you experience.
Mhm.
But yeah, and obviously a very big cost involved. So I know when I went to America, um I think for hair and makeup for each show is $500 per show. And
Cool.
yeah, and obviously I'm a pro, so it's not like I get everything for free being a pro, guys. I also pay for my own travel, etc. But yeah, so hair and makeup also expensive. So that's just, I guess, show day itself, right? And then not to mention like preps. Obviously working with a coach, I always recommend doing an off season. You should always do an off season with your coach before going into a prep with them. So about 12 months of prep coaches. Cost wise, it can be anywhere between 80 or probably like maybe 70, 60 if you had a really cheap one, but I wouldn't recommend. You know, you get what you get. You get what you pay for, and upwards of probably even 200 to 250 $50 if you have an expensive one, or if you have US coaches, of course, exchange rate is going to be different. What else is involved? Posing. Yeah, so I guess like a couple $1,000 I would say there in terms of posing. To if you're, if it's your first season, definitely about that. If it's your second, third, etc., you don't need as much posing sessions, so it's a little bit less. And then travel if you're traveling interstate or overseas. So it is very expensive doing a comp prep, but definitely 100% worth the investment.
Plus, like the NPC membership, you have to renew. So that's 200, I think. And then you got to do also your entry for your category. So if you're doing open and novice, that's like another $400 down.
Mm-hmm. So 200 for the NPC membership every year.
Yeah.
And then $400 per category or per show?
Might have been like 200 for the first, and then 100 for the if you do any more categories after, something like that. I know nationals was a bit different. Korea was like $350 entry, and I only did one class. I only did opens, and it was cost me $300 to enter.
Yeah, wow. I think it's because it's an amateur Olympia. That's probably why it's so expensive, because it comes from who owns each of the shows. But there you go, right? If you do a really good prestigious show, not only have you traveled to it, but it's expensive, expensive entry there as well. So just shout out to anyone that's thinking about doing their first show. Absolutely amazing, but be aware and be prepared for finances that does go into it. It does get easier. Like if the more kind of like better you get, etc. Like you probably have bikini sponsors, we might have tan sponsor, makeup sponsor, etc. But even at the pro level, we're still paying for our travel, we're paying for our makeup, hair, tan. So don't think that you're going to turn pro to get a free way to compete. It's not, unfortunately, it's not the way it is. Not these days.
Oh, plus like unexpected costs, like the fun things, right? Like you might do a photo shoot as well while you're lean, or you want to buy some stage shots. They're like $20 each, and if there's like 6 that you like, that's another fair bit that you weren't expecting. Like all these random things come up as well. Like I'm sure there's heaps that we've missed, but it is very, very important to have some funds behind you before, because you really don't need to be picking up extra shifts and having financial stress during a prep that's already tough.
Yep, 100%. Yep. Like as you said, like minimize stress as much as possible in prep. That's the biggest key.
Yeah, and then hacks, like you can hire bikinis. I don't know. There's lots of little tricks like that. Like you said, Lavisa. You can also shop online at those like Shein and stuff, because you really don't you wear your jewelry for just on stage and that's it. So it doesn't matter if it's good quality, but it's still going to cost a heap.
Yeah,
So much.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Speaking of tips as well, you can do your own tan. Like ProTan had their own self tanning foam. I'm not sure if it's in Australia yet, but yeah, otherwise you can order it in from overseas, I'm pretty sure. Whereas like you do your own tan, right? Mitt, top coat, whatever, or even if you did the base coat yourself and then got your top coat sprayed on the day, that saves you a lot of money as well. So, and the self tan from ProTan is really great conditioning, really really good quality. I mean, and a lot of the pros in the US do it as well.
Just practice first, though. Practice first. There's
Mm-hmm.
nothing worse than stuffing up your tan and you're like, I could have prevented this.
Yes, please, 100%. Question time, I think. Before we answer questions, I'm interested in what are your pet peeves in the fitness industry? A little bit of a fun topic.
Okay. Oof. Fitness industry in general.
Could be in
Or
the
just like
gym, could be fitness industry in general, could be competing, anything.
This one, I didn't have time to eat today, or I didn't have time to, like, I didn't get my meals in. Like maybe I'm a bit of a hard ass with this one, But this one drives me mad because I'm like, there's so much these days. Like, as you said, in Australia, we're so privileged. You can go to Woolies and have pre-made salads. There's tuna tins, protein bars. You can buy like those beautiful like chicken and rice pre-made meals just at Woolworths now, rice cakes. There's like so much stuff that there's no excuse. Like nuts even. Like I have a lot of like guy friends and they're like, oh, I couldn't get my calories in because I had a big day at work. I'm like, they're driving around in their car. I'm like, why can't you have protein bars in your center console, or like high calorie things like nuts? Like that doesn't take much time to sit there and eat while you're driving. Like I'm not expecting to go, like, I don't know. That's my pet peeve. Like there's always, we have microwavable rice these days. Like you can get it for like $2, like less than $2, and chuck it in the microwave. Have a chicken breast that's already cooked that you can buy, and there's a meal straight up.
100%. Run to the service station, put your food in the microwave there, the rice in the microwave. There's so many, there's so many, there's so many ways we can, get our food in.
Have the microwave.
Yeah.
I was using them all the time when I was a flight attendant. I was like, I'll just sneak in here and microwave my meal up quickly.
Yeah. But I suppose it comes from a lack of preparation, right? Same thing with macros. Like I always preach and I always teach, pretty much all my clients, if they don't know how to do fits and macros, I teach them, just because not only they can be flexible with their food, while I'm working with them, but longevity wise, if you know how to, if you know what's in foods in particular, then you're always going to forever make better choices. But I see a lot, it's just from a lack of preparation, right? Like lack of pre-planning. Like you don't need to eat the same foods every single day, but at least grab your MyFitnessPal the night before or that morning and put your food in for the day. That, or if you forgot your meal, then be like, cool, okay, what can I grab from Woolworths that's going to fit in, etc. So yeah.
I actually did a consult call. I wasn't a consult call, it was just a client call last night, and it was actually really fun. We learned macros. So I had MyFitnessPal up and she did, and we went through together, and I was like, we practiced like making swaps, and I was like, oh, what's something that you might feel like you want to eat? And she's like, oh, this. And I was like, okay, let's practice how we would fit that into your day. Like it was actually really cool.
Yeah, 100%. And everyone gets scared about learning macros to start off with, and 100% it's daunting. And you're gonna make mistakes, but it's one of those things that like you have to learn on the run, and as in like learn it as you're doing it and make mistakes. That's how you learn to do it, right? But like best thing you can do is learning macros 100%. If you're in prep, if you're a lifestyle client, anyone. Pet peeves. I think it's probably a very common one, but I think there's a difference of being on your phone when you're training, because like a lot of our programming these days, right, is like we all have our programs on our phone, we're listening to music on our phone and stuff. So I don't think having your phone with you when you're training is an issue, definitely not in this day and age. But it's a difference of having your phone, doing a quick message, whatever, versus sitting there on TikTok and seeing this slide. I think that's my biggest pet peeve. Just when you're in the zone and you're training, and if someone's just sitting on a machine in front of you and you just see them going through reels like this for half an hour, that's probably the biggest pet peeve. Like, get off the machine.
You need to D&D it. You need to put it on D&D and just leave your app open, because it's so easy to get distracted. You're like, oh, I just quickly reply to this Instagram, then all of a sudden you're just auto scrolling. You're like, oh crap, it's been like a 3-minute rest instead of one, or whatever. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, 100%. And even just being like having your own business, or like being a coach, as in you would know this, like over the last year, like setting time aside to sit down and reply to clients versus trying to reply to messages on the run. Because if I reply to messages or on the run the whole entire time, or during your session, like again, right, like it gets uncontrollable, and then before you know it, it's like the whole day's gone and you haven't actually achieved anything. So just being quite, when you're training, when you're working, etc.
The gym that I was training at in Japan, when I was there for work, the lady that worked there was actually really funny with that. Like she would there was someone who would like walk around the gym, and if you weren't, she wouldn't even let me do like a whole minute rest. She's like, get off. She's like, if you're not using, like, she was like cracking a whip. It was so strange. she's like, I liked it though, but it was a bit annoying sometimes. I'm like, I'm only got a minute rest. Like, let me just like sit on the leg extension. But no, she was like, get off. She's either using it or you're not.
Yeah, I think when I went to Japan, there's a lot of signs saying "stay off your phones" and stuff.
Yeah.
Very strict, and
Yeah.
you can't show tattoos in Japan, gyms in Japan either, and no shoes.
Yeah.
Or you have to
No,
have
you gotta
like
change shoes.
gym shoes, not
Yeah.
normal outside shoes.
I had to wear my flying heels because I couldn't fit an extra pair of shoes into my little bag. So I had to like wear my runners to the gym at the front door, change into my flying heels, right? Walk in my heels, my activewear in my heels, and then change into my gym shoes again. Because they will not let you walk in your gym shoes. But that was the only way. I didn't have enough luggage to pack 2 pairs of like runners.
What's your next pet peeve about the fitness industry? We'll do one more each.
Right, this is mean. Don't judge me for this. I really, really hate the get ready for the gym with me reels.
Okay.
I hate them. I don't know why, but they grind my gears. It's like everyone does the same thing. Like they're topless facing the wall and they put their sports bar on, and then like they're all the same, and I don't get it. It's
Yeah.
cute, but they're just oversaturated. I know that's like, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, to be quite honest, I feel like I'm pretty selfish on Instagram. I don't really pay attention to what people post or watch it, or catch myself scrolling for like a minute. Then I'm like, what am I doing? I'm not even paying attention.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, yeah, I agree with that one. Jess and I, if you have not noticed, we suck at on social media, including our work page. I feel like that's every single meeting we have. We're like, yeah, like we need to post more content, and we just
Can't
work.
be. I can't just post stuff for the sake of it, and I think that's where I'm getting at with the get ready with me. It's like, yes, I know having a business you need to produce things more frequently, but I don't want to just be putting out crap. Like, I love to that making it get ready for me real. That's time I could be doing stuff like I did yesterday, doing that consult call, teaching a girl how to track her macros. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'm very like strict about how I utilize my time. My time's really important to me. So I think when it comes to content, I do struggle because of that. I'm like, oh, I could make some random cute little reel, but I've got a lot of things. Like I want to put that time into my clients and ringing them or chatting to them, or, you know, going into work earlier and relieving my colleagues or whatever, you know.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. In this day and age, I feel like a lot of business, especially being an online coach, a big part about it is posting a lot of content, social media. I can see why. I can see the reasoning behind it, and it's obviously a lot of marketing. Myself, and I am shit at marketing. I work 24/7 in the background, and I'm very OCD and a perfectionist in my work. But when it comes to me, marketing, I'm like, I do not care. um, um, but yeah, just not a social media person anymore these days. Like I've been sponsored by clothing companies and stuff before, and like I didn't want it anymore simply because of, not because I was lazy, but like, you know, I didn't want to have to feel like I had to post certain amount of times a week, etc. Right? It's just like, if I want to post a photo in a gym gear, I'm going to post it, not because I have to, kind of thing. So yeah, like, you know, each to their own. But at the end of the day, my business and my clients are the most important thing to me, and getting the results and all that, rather than just creating marketing and posting content for no reason. I don't see the point. I see the point, but like it's not me, and I don't do it for that.
What's your other pet peeve?
Oh, raining question. This isn't a pet peeve. It's just a question that I'll get to my pet peeve. But how long do you think someone should be allowed to hold a machine before you take it? As in, for example, if someone was supersetting, or if they had, you know, they were using a machine, they've walked off to talk to someone in the gym, how long do you think is it okay to wait for this machine before you think you can either ask them to tell them that you're about to use it, or that for them to need to? to leave the machine?
Oh, do you know what? Depend. Like, I'm like either okay that I'm getting in to get my stuff done and leave. So I'll find luckily have the knowledge to be like, okay, I know another exercise or another machine that will target this as well. I'm going to use that instead. Or I just go and say, do you mind if I tap in? And usually that's enough to prompt them to be like, oh, whoops, sorry, no, I've got one more set left. Or if they get shy, they just give you it. But
Yeah.
like pretty instantly, like if you see someone's having a good chat, like that's okay. You know, it can be a social place too. But I would just like just whenever, if you want to use it, you got to use it. It's okay. You don't have to wait. I wouldn't like spend time being like, oh, how long are they going to take talking to this person?
What if this person disappeared? You couldn't see them anymore.
I just use it, and if they come back, I'll be like, oh yeah, we'll just tap in, or yeah, you can have it back.
Yeah, okay. So would I. But how long would you wait?
Oh, 5 minutes.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Definitely.
Huh?
Yeah. 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 I just want to have that note written in my phone. Anyway, but here in Dubai, one thing you would definitely a big thing is like you cannot leave. You can't like people will even take off weights on machine when you're physically using it. That's how bad it is.
Yes,
I would
yes.
probably be about to do my set and someone would try and take the plate off the Smith machine that I'm
That was so
on my
unreal.
back. Yeah.
Your gym that you go to, I trained there when I was in Dubai, and that was so evident. Like, it's actually nuts. Like, people, you're right. Like, they'll take it off your plates when you're using it, or they like stand literally next to you,
Yeah.
literally like almost touching you, and you're like, oh gosh.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. So yeah, so and vice versa, you'll also get people that will do. I had this the other day, and I was due for my cycle that day, so I was a little bit snappy. But people supersetting machines, which is fine, right? 100%. But at least like leave your drink bottle or your phone or a towel on the other machine that you're supersetting with. Don't just leave it free and then for people to you look at the machine, no one's using it, right? So anyway, long story short, I saw the cable on the other side of the gym, and this gym is like it's a huge freaking gym, right? So like I don't know, 50 meters away. Saw the cable free, walked over to it, walk, set up my kickbacks, about to do my set. So I've obviously been at this machine for already a few minutes before even starting my set. Start my set, and someone comes over and says, "Oh, sorry, I'm actually like using that. I'm supersetting," and it's just like, "Well, no, you weren't, or you could have at least left your stuff here." Yeah. Anyway, so that I guess that's my pet peeve. That's my pet peeve, isn't it? That answers my question.
I got one. When people don't pack up their weights, and not for like a mess perspective, but just for that reason, because you're like, I don't know if you're done or not. Like if you leave all your plates on the leg press, I don't know if you're coming back or if you're finished.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. You'll quickly learn though, if you come to Benoist here, people do not take the weights. They'll leave them on the floor in front of the rack, or they'll leave their weights on the machine and walk away. That's a very common thing here. Like honestly, Australians would cringe at this. Yeah, it's just what I think it's a culture thing as well, because a lot of people here have like they have housemaids, and it's very service based here. Essentially, people don't really do much for themselves.
I hate when people post the reels and they say what I've eaten in a day, but not on a general sense, but when they say when they've just come out of comp, the reel starts with like a shredded pic of them in their activewear, they're looking diced as, and they go, what I eat in a day, 3,000 calories. And I'm like, that's really deceiving, because you actually didn't get to this physique eating 3,000 calories. You got to this physique doing probably a bit of cardio, quite a severe calorie deficit for a long period of time. And here you are promoting like me eating 3,000 calories and I look like this. I'm like, you don't look like that because of, like, do you know what I mean? Like, that's a big misinformation. I hate those ones. That's my actual rather. That's way worse than the get ready for me. They're harmless. These ones are like very, deceptive.
Yeah, I agree.
It's always post show and everyone's looking lit and they're like straight into their reverse and their body hasn't caught up on the weight gain yet. And they're like, 3,000 calories in a day, what I eat on a plate, like come with me on my day. And I'm like, babe, what? That's not, some general pop will look at that and be like, oh, why don't I look like that after eating 3,000 calories?
Yeah, 100%. Flip side, and another pet peeve is when when someone finishes comp, right? As we all know, we need to reverse out of a show to not screw our metabolism. But when you see someone that after comp they get rid of their coach, and then they're showing that they're so happy and they're enjoying balance with their life, and they're they're lean, they're healthy, they're promoting balance, and that they can do it themselves, I suppose. But then a month later you see them blow out. Sad, but I feel like that, I don't know, it sets people, it's them making it sound like it's okay to go back to eating shit straight away, and you don't need help and guidance to guide you after prep, and then you rebound straight away after.
It's super important to do reverse with guidance, because you're going to have lots of, like, you need that objective person to look over, because you're going to have a bit of body dysmorphia. You might have some like cravings, like you can't really trust your body yet because your hormones are a bit all over the place. It's not always possible to just eat intuitively, because some people's eating intuitively after comp when they're craving everything under the sun might be like consistently like smashing down like 4,000 calories a day.
Yeah, yeah. And your hunger hormones, ghrelin and leptin, are out of whack, right? So you might feel really hungry, or you might think that you need to eat, whereas like you actually don't really need to. You actually don't need to. You actually shouldn't. It's just your hormones are out of whack from dieting for so long and being at low body fat levels, that they're going to be extreme, right? Your hunger hormones going to be extreme, etc., which is why it's so important to have someone to guide you and structure you out of that routine, out of that reverse, without eating too much, putting on too much body fat, etc.
Yeah, and you're used to seeing yourself so lean too. You need someone who you trust to be like, no, sis, you're still lean. You need to eat a bit more. Like even that end of the scale too. Like revert. Even when we did our 12-week challenge, towards the end of the challenge, I was like, all right, can we start doing a reverse? Because I didn't want to leave these girls high and dry at the end without that help. Like I think it's essential to keep your coach on for your reverse. I know that you don't have, you've spent a lot of money on comp and it's been expensive and blah blah blah, but like it is just that it's an extension of your comp. Your prep's not done yet until you at least have a bit of guidance for at least the following month, more, but like at least a month.
Yeah, and it's way more expensive. Like, yes, you'll be like, I know people do it in terms of a cost side of things, but it is way more expensive to get rid of your coach, a month before you should, versus like if you got rid of your coach straight after show and then you blew out and your metabolism was fucked, your hormones were fucked because you didn't reverse and have someone guide you through it. That's way more expensive, and you will pay way more for that, not only mentally and physically in the off season to come, but for when you're trying to fix the damage going into your next season, etc. So girls, don't get rid of your prep coach until about 4 to 8 weeks after show, if you want to get rid of them, of course. I think it's time to finish on our questions, because it's been a very long time since we've been podcasting. So we've already answered one of the questions. We've got a few more. This question I like in particular, because it touches on the mental side of things, and yeah, it'll be good to hear your point of view. But the question is, have you ever had fear of being too small? How did you get by this?
For stage?
Yeah, for stage, like being too small.
All the time. And I have no magic answer. Like I just trusted you, because I knew that you would tell me if I wasn't quite ready and I needed more time in a growth period.
Yep. Yep. The flip side of it, like that is the sport, right? Like we've got to grow. And like I've been competing for nearly 10 years now, and I guarantee you, I have been too small this whole entire time, right? Probably like 95% of competitors, maybe even 98% of competitors need to grow. They're too small, right? That's going to always be part of the feedback, where there's going to be a certain body part where we've got to grow, we've got to bring up or grow overall, right? It's very rare that someone gets told that they're too big and they need to downsize. Ashley Couchwazzer, for example, right? Like, how long has she been competing for? She's won, I think she's up to 48 pro wins now, right? And it wasn't until her last show that she was told for the first time ever she was a bit too full, a bit too big. She needs to, dial it down a little bit. So in what? That's like maybe 15 years of her whole entire career. She's got the most pro wins ever in bodybuilding, and she's only just been told that she's too big. So if you need to grow, like, don't let that hold yourself back. Don't take that personally, because we all need to grow. I need to grow my glutes, for fuck's sake. Like, like I'm forever training glutes. They're never gonna be big enough,
Oh,
maybe by the end of my career. But yeah, that's the sport. You're it's always room for improvement. Even Miss Bikini Olympia has room for improvement, right? That's what the sport's about. When will Jess be competing again? We already answered that one. So next year in season C. Do you ever feel like competing and prep make you miss out on life? I'll let you answer.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I miss myself. At the end of prep, I miss myself because I know that naturally I'm like a bubbly person. I'm really energetic. I take a lot of pride in my job too. Like, I'm also a nurse, and I love that about me. Like, it's one of my favorite roles. And I really miss myself at the end of prep because I'm like, I'm not fun. My personality's dulled, right? Like, I don't do all these extra things. Like, I love spontaneous stuff. I can't really engage in anything spontaneous during prep. You miss out on a lot of things for like cost reasons. I'm like, well, I can't really go and do this because I'm trying to save up for my show, or just like, you miss a lot. There's a lot of things you miss out on. Like, there's a lot of things you gain from a prep, but you miss out on a lot of things too. Even just like really sentimental things. Like, how nice is it walking along with a friend and just like randomly stopping in and sharing like a little cheesecake that you walk past? Like, those moments are really special to me in my life, and I miss those so much when I'm in prep.
Yeah.
And they seem insignificant, but they mean a lot to me, and I miss them a lot when I'm in prep.
Yeah, I agree with that actually, 100%. Like, when we're talking actual preps itself, like just the prep portion, yeah, 100%, right? But when you think about anything in life, like for example, if someone had a big company, a big business, right, and they're working on projects, like, it's to achieve big, great things in life, like, it does come with some sacrifice, right? If that's worth it, like, it's up to you and your choices. Like, we all feel the same at the end of a prep, just like what you said, right? Like, for that period of time, we're making the sacrifice to for comp, because it's worth it for us, because we love competing, we love the sport, but we're smart enough to have the balance as well and to enjoy those times in off season. So as I mentioned, like, it's important to use that time to give back to your loved ones, give back to your friends, your family, give back to yourself, fill up your own cup before going into comp prep again. So yeah, absolutely in prep. But I think that's with anything that in life that you're trying to succeed with, that will happen. In as a whole, being a competitor, do I feel like I'm missing out on life? Because, like, for example, there's been people that like previous close friends of mine that were competitors and aren't competing anymore, and they're like, there's so much more life to live, etc. Yeah, I get that, right? But person dependent, right? Like, I feel like the last few years, like, just after COVID, I moved. I feel like I probably like a midlife crisis or something. But when I moved countries, like, I moved to Dubai, and then in that year I did something stupid, like 40 international flights, like a ridiculous amount, right? So
Oh my God, I remember that. That was
yeah.
nuts.
Yeah, I moved to Dubai. I went to the US for 6 weeks competing, flew around all the way there, flew back to Australia, flew back to Dubai quite a few times, flew to Europe with one of my clients, then went back to Australia and went back, went to Japan, and then went all over the US, and then back to Australia, back to Dubai. Like, yeah, insane, right? So obviously very much lived my life that year. And yeah, but like, I'm so glad that I did it, but it was also kind of like a midpoint in my competing that made me realize, like, no, like, I love my lifestyle. I love what I do. I love competing, right? I can still do those things in off season. I don't need to do that much. Like, I'll go for a trip here and there, but I don't need to, like, I don't feel like competing or being a competitor limits me at all. It's what I love doing, and that's the way I enjoy living my life. If people understand it or not, um then cool. But yeah, each to their own in what we love.
I agree 100%. And like, yeah, I love everything about it. And you gain a lot. Like, people sort of, when they don't understand, they think that you miss out on things, but you gain so much. Even just like life skills. Like, when you going to the gym, you're learning like persistence, patience, resilience, like all that stuff. You're getting connections with other people, you're challenging yourself, you feel good from exercising. Like, I love eating clean. Like, yes, I love my foods, like my fun foods too, but like, I don't feel like I'm at a loss at all. But I mean, the only thing, like, one day when I stop competing, the nicest thing will be having the freedom to be like, it's my birthday coming up, I'd really like to do a mini cut. Whereas these days it's like,
Mhm.
well, if I do a mini cut for my birthday, that kind of like impacts like when I want to start my prep, or that's going to like cut into my bulking time. And like, it's this weird like schedule of like how your physique has to look. That's the only thing I'm kind of really looking forward to one day down the track when I stop competing, is just like, or training kind of like what I feel like training, instead of going for a criteria.
Yeah.
It's like I had to like quads and stuff for a bit to be more balanced for bikini. And it's like, one day when I stop competing, it's going to be fun to be like, I'm just going to go smash my quads today, or train my back really hard, or like do a bulk right now because I want to, or do a cut right now because it's my wedding or whatever. Instead of it always being like revolving around sort of like what period I am in terms of competing season.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. I agree with that. I think the training side of things I'll be fine with. And I think like the balance with like food, like for example, like when I had kids, like cooking normal foods for them and eating it with them, etc. Not having to eat so many meals a day, etc. I think I'll be fine with that. I think the hardest part will be like, as you said, like doing cuts for an event or a wedding or whatever. I think like I think I'll find that really hard to diet for a reason other than a comp. I think
Oh,
uh,
true.
yeah,
Okay, yeah.
I think that'll be another haven't got my head around that yet. One day hopefully, but yeah, but I do see life beyond competing. I think when I decide to hang up my heels, like I'll be okay with that decision. I'll be quite happy to live a bit more of a normal life then, but enjoy being competitive now, smash it, and then in the future I'll just live through my clients and through everyone in their own preps. Next question. How do you make sure you have good gut health?
I don't think there's like a magic answer to this. I think you just need to take care of the foods that you're consuming, and just like really basic stuff like sleep, hydration, food quality,
Mhm.
um, timing of food. Like, get to know yourself. Like, some people need to eat smaller meals a bit more frequently as opposed to having like big meals. Like, those like bodybuilder guys when they're on their huge bulks and they're just suffering the whole time because they're just consuming so much food, their digestion's like dying.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
I don't know
I
if
think
personally
first and foremost,
recommendations or anything, but there's not really a magic answer to it, I don't think.
yeah, I agree. Everyone's a bit like it's person dependent, right? But I think first and foremost, you need to have good food sources. Like whole foods are always going to be way better than processed foods. So like that's a no-brainer. You don't need to be perfect with your food. Like, 80-20 rule, very easy in off season. Enjoy 20% fun foods, 80% whole foods. Whole foods is going to be the gist of it. And then of course if you're gluten intolerant, you'll know. If you're dairy intolerant, you'll know. So say avoid those things. But then there's also other environmental factors that do also, play a part with upsetting digestion as well. Like, brain and gut. There's a lot of studies where, it shows that your brain and gut are linked essentially. So in terms of like stress, anxiety, if you're with your nervous systems, we've got two nervous systems as you would know. We've got parasympathetic and parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. One is rest and digest, one is fight or flight. So as the name itself, right? If you always stuck in fight or flight, whether that's trauma, related, or if you're in a chronic state of stress, that's going to, you know, if you're not going to rest and digest, then of course your digestion is going to be shit and affected, and it'll probably compound over time if you don't get to the root cause and the issue of that. So yes, obviously there's a lot of different things that could affect that and your digestion. But first and foremost, whole foods, eat clean food that your body loves and digests.
You were so hard on me with that with my prep because I was flying, and you're like, go to sleep. You're like, you need to sleep for your digestion. Like, go to bed. Why are you awake?
Yeah, 100%. And your next off season is going to be like, I'm so like happy with how our last off season has gone, but I still feel like there's so much missing progress that you can achieve simply just from having a bit more routine and structure with your life. Like you absolutely killed it with all your traveling and your being a flight attendant, but next off season, now that you've got more structure and you're more grounded at home, your progress is gonna skyrocket so much more.
I counted how many trips overseas I did. What were we up to? So I made this post. Oh gosh, I had a tally. It's not, my Instagram's like lagging for some reason. It's not letting me see the caption. But yeah, I'd done like 14 overseas trips or something, and probably like 16 interstate trips during my prep. So I'm super keen to see what my off season looks like with like proper sleep. Not that my nutrition was bad, but just like not eating tuna tins and rice cakes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so keen. Like the routine is just like so, like, I don't know. I don't know. When I started nursing again, even though the shifts are a bit all over the place, it's so nice to just come home after work.
Yeah.
It's like the biggest privilege of all time. Like I can have the most craziest like 12-hour shift at the hospital, but I come home and I'm like, man, what a privilege. I get to actually cook a meal from scratch instead of eating some tuna tins with nothing else, because that's all I've got in the hotel room.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then also like the days where there were so many days where you would be awake for more than 24 hours, right? Because you've got to work and then you're trying to get home and you're delayed and stuff. Like all those days would add up compared to, you might have a later shift from your nursing at the moment or whatever, but that's fine. You're still not going to be awake for like 24 plus hours, and you're going to go home, you're going to have good sleep, and then you're going to go train in the same gym, so you've got consistency with the machines that you're using. You can progress with that. So yes, not only a sleep aspect, but yeah, I think like you'll be able to tick the boxes a lot better.
Hotel gyms. Hotel gyms.
Yeah, no.
Nah, good. It's learning. It's all learning. I learned so much. I learned to improvise. I learned to deal with not having control. It was good. Good, amazing experience, to be honest.
Yeah, for sure. Alrighty, last question, and then we can wrap up the podcast, because it's been going for quite a while. We could talk forever, but
I know.
last question. What are your goals for Jess and StephkaFit? So what are our goals for you and the business? So keep growing. Jess, grow, get on stage, improve. Obviously, like now that we're close to that pro card, and that's what we're going to shoot for next season, and do a few pro qualifier shows to hopefully secure that. But yeah, business wise, looking to rebrand that, so make it a bit more bigger and better, as always. Never settled and stayed in one place. So yes, I think next year will be a bit more rebranding, growing business side of things. At the moment I'm in prep. so I can't put those plans in place just yet. So next season will be all about that. And yeah, and Jess, after our first year of working with us, has absolutely killed it. So we'll continue to grow together and just keep growing the team and just keep dominating, and yeah, and having our team dominate. Anything you would like to add to that, Jess?
No.
Awesome. Are you excited for season C this year?
I'm very excited for season C. I'm going to be going to obviously, well, the state shows in Gold Coast, which is awesome.
I saw that.
We've got one of our girls flying over for that. And then I'll probably head back to Melbourne for nationals as well, because any excuse to go back to my home state is always good.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. But even just as the IFBB shows, it's very exciting, and the atmosphere is that community vibe in Australia. I do miss that when I'm here, to be quite honest. Like Australia does have a good
Yeah.
living community there. Yeah, so I really love coming back for the seasons, and when I come back for my clients' comps, it's always something I always look forward to.
Yeah, we love having you back.
And I love being back, so definitely worth it. It's definitely worth the 14-hour flight there and back.
Nice though, isn't it? Especially nationals, because you have everyone from different states, like people you've competed with, other coaches, it's just like a big party. It's the best. Like you see all these people that you align with and have the same values as you, and it's the best catch up ever.
Yeah,
I love it.
100%.
Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. All right, guys. Well, thank you for listening along on the podcast. Thank you for being our guest, Jess. We've been trying to tee this up for quite a little while since your season. So very proud of you in your last season, and I'm very excited to keep growing with you as a business partner and everything as well, and for our next season next year overseas.
Yeah, and I'm keen for your prep. Not long to
No long at all. 13 weeks to go now. All right. See you, ladies, and we will see you in the next podcast.